Gentlemen, and the 5 ladies that watch this, hi mom. Today we're going over my top 5 coolest weapons in my collection, at least in my opinion. Now this is a popular series on the channel. We've had many YouTubers in this segment. Guys like Brandon Herrera, Grantham, Demo Ranch, Kentucky Ballistics, Micah Mayfield. Am I forgetting anyone? If I forgot you, I am sorry. But we have had a lot of guys on the channel and we will continue to get more, and I figured it was time to do it for myself. Now, the criteria of this was I wanted to go with guns that have a little bit more sentimental value. So I'll give you a quick historical context or the context on the gun, and then I'll give you kind of what it means to me sentimentally. That's something that I think is cool about these guns that we're going over today. So let's dive on in. Now, before we really get ripping and rolling, I want to give a big thank you to this video sponsor, TacPack. TacPack is a monthly subscription where you get a value deal for gear that shows up to your doorstep. Professional grade gear from brands like Battle Arms Development, 9-Line, Reptilia, 511, CMMG, CRKT, Fab Defense, and Mission First Tactical. TacPack has 2 tiers. Standard tier is $59.95 a month and usually values around $90 to $120. TacPack Plus, say that 5 times fast. TacPack Plus. It costs $139.95 and typically has a value around $240 to $300. New subscribers to TacPack can use my code ADMIN and get a free extra package of tactical gear worth $60. The freebie ships inside of your first TacPack. Halo laser rangefinder, a t-shirt, Mission First Tactical, Mantis dry fire trainer, M-Lock rail for your sissy hands. If you sign up for TacPack Plus while using my code, it'll bring your total value of stuff that you get up to almost $400, sitting around the $390 mark. That is a bargain deal for how much you will pay, and I appreciate TacPack for sponsoring this video. Lord, this thing hits like a ton of bricks. Up first, I got the Kar 98K, the workhorse of Nazi Germany during World War II. Millions of these were made. As far as gun being super uber duper rare or special, not necessarily the case. Now, this one does have all matching serial numbers, which if my knowledge is correct and I may get something wrong, it would lend to the fact that this was a vet bringback. Typically, when the Germans surrendered these, gun would be in one pile, bolt in the other, so I was told, and if the guys brought them back after that, then the bolts would be mismatched. This one has matching bolt to the receiver, date marked 1940, has the Waffen-Amps. Pretty cool piece of history. Now, the sentimental value, I would say, is it's a direct connection to my dad. This kind of sounds suspect. What was your dad doing in Argentina? So my late father was a pastor, and at one of his churches, he had a member in it that was from the 101st Airborne, and that gentleman gifted my dad this particular rifle. And kind of in my head, you know, with guns, you buy the gun, not the story, but in my head, it's date marked 1940, 101st Airborne. Who knew when he picked this gun up? Maybe it was during Operation Overlord, maybe it was during Battle of the Bulge. I could be wrong on putting the 101st in certain places, but in my head, it's like maybe he got it from a more seasoned German trooper that was using it in many campaigns, and then that German met his fate to the 101st Airborne. Kind of cool. We'll never know. Gun can't talk. Who knows where the thing's been and what it has seen. Nonetheless, it's a sentimental connection to my dad. Funny enough, at one point, my dad was considering getting rid of the gun. He was like, well, it's got all matching numbers. He wasn't a huge gun guy like I am. Go figure. He was a man of the Lord. I took that energy and applied it to guns, and I think maybe we talked them out of it because it's one of those things where if you don't need the money, don't get rid of a gun. A wise man once told me that, and now I can pass it on to my next generations, and hopefully they'll do the same to theirs. That's something cool about firearms, is passing them on and raising up kids to actually appreciate them. That's one of the sad tragedies of life, is when kids don't appreciate their parents' collection. All right, moving on. Weapons handling. Do you know it? Elysium Space AK, kind of. Let's dive in. Now, OGs of the channel should recognize this if we go way back. This is one of the earliest guns I would pimp out on my channel, and it helped me get a lot of notoriety. Now, the gun was inspired by the science fiction weapon from the movie Elysium. a 7.62 AK that fired airburst rounds, and I thought it was pretty freaking sick. The big laser module on top with the designator communicating with the airburst rounds in the chamber. You had a big sci-fi looking red dot on top, and I was looking at that thing and I was like, you know what? With my AK, I think I could probably kind of get it in the ballpark. Sure enough, I did, made a video on it, and the video helped seed the channel into becoming what it is today. I have done many different setups with this gun, just trying things out, but typically it returns to this configuration. You got a SIG stock on it, the more compact, like MCX style stock. You have, it's arguably very weird, but a Strike Industries replacement for the rear iron sights where you can mount a red dot to. And then we have the Ultimac rail, Warsaw Wood Co. wood grip, and they were kind enough to, and the grip looks amazing, kind enough to add the Executive Outcomes logo into it. Then we have the barrel clamp on it for the weapon light, and then Zenico purse, Surefire, pressure pad. Gun is definitely a vibe. 7.62 AKs I think are really fun, really cool. There is definitely something to be said about sending a 30 cal slug down range. They wouldn't end up getting, in historical terms, the way of the Dodo by the AK-74. A little bit more ammo you can carry, not as heavy as a projectile. Troops tend to like that. Lighter recoil, but still very lethal. Now for me personally, and a lot of sentimental reasons, the gun did help build the channel, and so I am very appreciative to it, and it just looks freaking sick. It represents a time in my life when things were a lot simpler. Back in the day when I first built this AK, because I built this myself thanks to the supervision of a friend that knew how to do it, and that's totally legal by the way, you can do that. So it was a fun adventure learning how to make it, learning about AKs. So I have since dumped all that info and I am now back to being a normal idiot. Another reason I like it so much is it was my introduction to the AK world. I was never big into AKs, and this one really kind of lit the fire for me when it really came to that sort of new opening of interest. Because I was before that like a stereotypical Glock AR-15 only kind of guy. I thought AKs were antiquated and outdated, and when I ran this before it got all Gucci'd out, it was always a lot of fun running iron-sighted AKs and 7.62x39 that you built yourself, and it was a cool connection to an era where I thought I knew a lot, but looking back, I didn't know jack nothing. And that's kind of like the story for a lot of gun guys. Like, you first get into guns, you realize how little you know, you start to learn a bunch of stuff and you think you know everything, and then as time goes on you realize you don't know nothing. In all of Athens, Socrates was the wisest man, for he knew that he knew nothing. Moving on. Chunky. Ohio Ordinance HCAR. It's a plane. It's a train. No, it's a modernized BAR battle rifle, chambered in 30-06. What is the HCAR? Essentially, it's a modern gun built around a BAR receiver done by Ohio Ordinance, called the HCAR, the Heavy Counter Assault Rifle. I remember being a young lad seeing FPS Russia have one of these on his channel, and ever since their inception, my little monkey brain has been obsessed with it. It was one of my dream guns. Now, the gun didn't really end up on the silver screen, but it has showed up in video games. My buddies were telling me that a variation of it's in the newest Call of Duty, as well as being in Battlefield Hardline. Now, from a practicality standpoint, the gun is one of the guns of all times because it is like taking money and lighting it on fire. The gun itself is rather expensive. 30-06 ain't cheap. The mags for the gun are also very expensive, probably running around $100 a pop. A YouTube compliant 1-round magazine. Thank you, YouTube. So it is very much a money pit, and then you have to throw all your attachments on it. Now, this gun was a gift from one of my favorite sponsors, Americana Pipe Dream Apparel. Fantastic young Zoomers getting after the Elysium Space and Arena, and they have a bunch of stuff on their website to fill out your drip, and I would encourage you to go check them out so you can LARP hard in your mother's basement. Night vision knives, manuals, and of course, really cool camo that will sell out like hotcakes if you're not up to date. They sent me this gun as kind of like a sponsorship style deal for X amount of videos, kind of pay it off kind of thing, when I was even a smaller channel than I am now. And to me, the sentimental value was kind of like a stepping stone in the YouTube career. I think the gun is freaking sick. Is it the most practical battle rifle out there? Absolutely not. You know, 7.62x51 has essentially dodoed 30-06 because it was a modernized version of 30-06, making it more efficient of a round for you to carry as a soldier. That being said, 30-06 black tip ammo, if you can find it, is definitely a vibe, and I I would love to run it through my HCAR. The look of the gun, I know a lot of guys will talk, it's kind of reminiscent of like a 40K bolter with this big mag in it, but you know, I can see it. The Emperor protects, the Emperor provides for the Emperor. Just absolutely melting Tyranids, and I would feel confident using this against a Tyranid horde. A boy can dream as the wind picks up. Of course, I had to rattle can this expensive gun because it looks cooler and it makes the gun more mine. EOTech G43 Aimpoint Comp 5, Surefire SOCOM 762, and the gun is kitted and fitted for all of your hard LARPing on the flat range when you get outside of mom's basement. I think the gun overall is very cool. It was one of my dream guns. It's one of my favorite guns in my collection. It's probably up there towards the top as far as coolness goes. BARs, man, they're just all American. 30-06 feels all American. Sports cars, apple pie, and baseball. Fighting wars in the far southeast of Asia and Western Europe feels very American. And this is a modern variation of that. I've done a lot of shooting with it, built out kits with it, and ultimately it's one of my top 5 coolest guns in my opinion. But we still have more to go over. AK74 built by Jim Fuller. Now, the AK-74, of course, screaming into popularity around the world, used in many conflicts since the inception, a popular 5.45 round, which is very lethal. We even see it today being used in the conflict or war in Ukraine, guys clearing trenches, still putting in work with AK-74s. Now, this particular AK was a parts kit from Apex Gun Parts, built out by Jim Fuller, who I would consider the Hattori Hanzo of AK builders, probably one of the best AK builders in the United States. And as the YouTube journey progressed, getting the chance to have a weapon built out by him, to me, was a great honor, and I'm a big fan of his work and will continue to be a big fan of his work. So that's the sentimental value of it right there. It's a cool gun built out by someone that I look up to, a good patriotic man, well skilled in the AK building. Gun's a very fun gun to shoot compared to, say, the 7.62x39 variation of AKs. It's, you know, just how it goes when you have the lighter intermediate cartridge like a 5.45. I think they're very freaking sick. This one's Zenit out with some of the furniture that I got before the war kicked off, making supplies a little bit harder to get, and ultimately I still think it's a very practical weapon. 5.45 will definitely mess up someone, even though it's not as cool as like an AK-105. These are still being heavily used, like I said. So on here I have the EOTech G33, the Holoston mailbox, which is definitely accurate to the conflict in Ukraine. Now, if you are in the need for good optics, I would encourage you to go check out Optics Planet. And then we have the Mod Light PW Light, rattle canned by yours truly, and this of course has also showed up in a number of videos. I always switch things up. I kind of have what Hop would call the AR-15 syndrome, or whatever he says, where you're always moving stuff around. But ultimately, I think it is one of my coolest guns, and I had to show it off to you guys because it is built out by the Mr. Jim Fuller, and it has brought me nothing but joy when running and gunning it. Admin, you're a dead man! Of course, the Blood Diamond Car 15's on this list. What would you expect? Arguably one of my favorite guns, and I would say it definitely built the channel. Now, if you are totally unfamiliar of what I'm talking about right now, Leonardo DiCaprio, 2006, Jennifer Connelly in the movie Blood Diamond, a movie about a gentleman born in Rhodesia, grew up in South Africa, fought in the 3-2 Battalion, would go on to become a mercenary and then a smuggler, is searching down one of the largest diamonds ever found. Now, in the movie, there is a scene where he uses this gun for about 15 seconds. I saw it, it registered in my brain, and it consumed my thoughts for a long time. I went about the quest of building the gun out. So kind of put things in historical perspective, even just years ago, I was so unaware to the knowledge that was the retro style AR-15s as I was getting into guns. And at the time, the general So at the time of putting together the Blood Diamond Car 15, the general interest of the firearms community was geared towards what is the most practical, what is the most cost-effective before being practical, what's the best AR-15, what's the best performance you can get. The retro gun thing wasn't as cool as it would be now. Companies like Brownells or Troy kind of missed the boat, and it sucks for them, and then now H&R PSA can come along and mop up that market. It's a fun little firearms industry history. So at the time of making this, it was kind of a lot of learning I had to do. Okay, so I had to research the movie. Okay, what kind of weapon light was he using? Oh, this is a Surefire 660. Oh, he was using the probably using the Aimpoint M68. Well, if the movie came out this year, was the Aimpoint M68 even out yet? Is that historically correct for the time period? Blah, 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 right? All of this little chatter to get to what we have. It was a lot of minutia learning, and it was really fun, and it definitely helped build the channel. Now, I believe this gun for sure was in Black Hawk Down, the movie, and it should look reminiscent to some ways to the Gordy rifle of Black Hawk Down with the Surefire light. It's just missing the big suppressor they had in the movie, but we do have the Aimpoint M68 or the Aimpoint Pro, whatever one this is. In the movie Blood Diamond, I want to say his moderator is just a little bit longer, and it's hard to say why they went with that. Maybe they wanted more of a flash, because as far as practicality goes with a moderator like this, it's probably one of my least favorite parts about the gun, but it does give it the iconic look. And then we have a Surefire 660, very popular weapon light back in that retro era. Now, the Weaver mount up here that's attached to is actually a knockoff Weaver mount. The reason is at the time, and typically I'll still do this, I'll just buy cheap mounts, because one, it's for a flashlight. Two, I can use a lot of Loctite. Three, I don't want to mess up the expensive Weaver mounts that I have, grinding them down. I know it's one of my red flags, but that was the thought process behind it. It's going to be a 10.5 barrel. We have a 6-hole clamshell, the heat shield, whatever you want to call it. Then moving back, we have a Picatinny mount. Now, I believe the OG one that should be used is like an arms mount, but those are expensive and hard to find, so we're just using a generic carry handle rail. Typically, I Loctite down everything. Then we have the Aimpoint mount for, I believe, the 30mm tube for the Aimpoint M68. Got a Geisley trigger in there, and that is pretty much the gun. And of course, to do it right, you got to have that CAR 15 stock on there. So without this gun, I don't think the channel would be what it is today. You got to think of all the history of the channel, the lore, sometimes the controversy. It's good for business, baby. But it is a very cool firearm. So I am very grateful to what it has done for this channel and for you guys that have found such an interest in it over the years. Of course, the gun runs like a dream. Today we were just shooting some Badlands ammo, the 55 grain, some cheap stuff just for planking away. They're the ammo sponsor of the channel, local Arizona guys, and I do appreciate them very much. Gun did good, and I always love running and gunning it. Now, if you do want to stick around, like and subscribe, I do have a modernized variation of this that I want to go over in a future episode. But for now, I would say this concludes the top 5 coolest guns of administrative results. I don't know why I'm talking about myself in the third person. I appreciate you guys sticking around, watching this far. You guys truly are the reason I make these videos as I talk to a lifeless camera. But behind that, I know you guys are out there on the toilet, eating your coffee, drinking your beer, and it has been a very fun journey. It's kind of like a fun way to reminisce and look back at the guns that helped build the channel or build a lot of interest. And to me, I kind of get sentimental about this stuff sometimes, so it's fun to yap to you guys about it. I got nothing else. I'll catch you guys on the flip.